Hi everyone, I'm doing my John Maxwell, and today I'm looking at the law of buy-in. So when we look at the law of buy-in, John Maxwell is basically telling us that the leader finds the dream and then the people find the leader and then the dream. So when we look at our faith lives, if we look at why would we follow our faith, our Christian faith, when we know that Jesus landed up going to the cross and going to the cross willingly, giving up his life for us as our God and fully man. It's because of what he came, the good news that he came to help us with healing, to give us hope, to heal people, to cure people, to lead people closer to God. And it's the same thing with our organizations. When we're working in the corporate world, often you'll find that people are drawn to a leader. They know who's leading a company and they want to work with that person or they want to work for that person. Sometimes it's not the case, like when there's a lot of unemployment, people just say, okay, you know what, there's a job fair, I just want a job. But once people have been in a company a while, they get to know who the leaders are, what the opportunities are, and they buy into that person. It's the same with political values or political leaders. People buy into the person first and the values that that person has, and then they buy into giving up their time, volunteering, doing whatever it is that we are doing. And the example that I would use is if you look at what happened with Nelson Mandela, and there was all races on his team. There was Indians, there was whites, there was black people, but people bought into his vision of a free and fair South Africa, and they followed him, and they stuck with him even while he was in prison and until he came out of prison and he ran the country. And the same thing happened with Rhodesia. When Rhodesia broke away from the Queen, people knew that it wasn't going to be easy. They knew that it wasn't going to be a walk in the park, but they did it anyway. And as a result, they blockaded us. They would refuse to sell our goods, our products. They stopped products coming into the country. They basically shut us down, because we were not supporting the kings and queens of Britain. And then Russia came in and supported the small parties that were there, gave them guns, empowered them, and then there was a war in the country. So people buy into the vision first, and then they buy into what else is going to come, the benefits that can come after that. It's the same thing when we have our sales, with our marketing, with the products we're selling. People are buying because Serena Williams is wearing a certain shoe or a certain dress. People will want that because she's credible. She's got that people power. She's proven herself. She's somebody who's dynamic. So people will want to buy that product to support her and to support her message that she's given. So that's why you'll find that people will spend, and companies will spend a lot of money on marketing, on getting their image right, on getting their values right. And if we don't have those people in place that people can look up to, that people can say, okay, I want to accomplish that, I want to achieve that, there's nothing really to follow. There's no path to follow. So for many of us who are coming into Canada as immigrants, we don't have that path. We don't have people who can take us under their wing, who can mentor us, who can help us and guide us. So what we have to do is we have to prove our character to people. And we have to prove that we are solid, that we are standing on solid ground. And in that way, people will see that we are credible. And then we have to prove our competence. So we have to prove that we can do the jobs, that we've got credentials that are just as good as theirs. We have to be willing to take direction and to change when we have to. but also to stand up against values that are not helping the company or not helping the leadership the way that they should. And then people will see our commitment, and if they see our commitment, then they will be willing to follow us. If they don't see our commitment, then they won't be willing to follow us. It was the same thing like when I had joined the One campaign. Mandela was part of that initiative, and he was part of that message that we can make poverty history, that poverty is sexist. So there was a compelling message there tied in with the political ideology that drew me into the One campaign. It wasn't purely just Bono and Bono's music. And he's not on the board with us now anyway, but we have a new leader, and she's very good. And we're happy because we were all nervous. We didn't know how things were going to go. We didn't know how it was going to play out. But we have to remember that when we have our causes, when we have things at the church, like even with our food drives with Christmas, sometimes it can be overwhelming because everybody's asking for something. But like for me, I give my time because I don't have money to give, so I give my time. When I do have money, I give in the church, and now I don't even bother putting it in the envelope most times. For 4 of the weeks of the month, I'll put one in the envelope. The rest I don't, because I'm like, you know what? They mess up your taxes anyway. So we can buy into that, and we can give and ask God to bless that giving and to help it to come back to us in different ways. Because in this, what we are doing as immigrants, we are the messenger. We are the ones who have to represent ourselves. Nobody's going to put us on a pedestal. No one's going to help us. And nobody's going to be there for us. So we have to do it on our own. And then John Maxwell also says it's not an either-or proposition. If we are in difficult circumstances, we can look at how we can combine all those 3 factors and bring them together. And you'll find that there's big companies like Delta Airlines, where they said we need to take care of our people. If you take care of your people, the people will take care of the customers. And that's true. If you allow your people to be abused, to be shouted at, to be yelled at, and you tell them, oh, show empathy, who's going to stay with your company? The minute that employee finds another job somewhere else, they're going to say, I'm out of here. Thanks. I appreciate it. I'm leaving now. You have to take care of your people first. And when you take care of your people and your people have the right values, then you'll find that the company will do well. And it's important to remember that. It's the same thing when Blair was in power in England. A lot of people voted him in for 3 consecutive terms. Not everybody liked his policies, but they were willing to give up their philosophical ideas to support him because people liked him. So sometimes that does happen. You have bad leaders, but they keep voting them in because they like them. They know they're putting them into poverty. They know they're putting them into bad situations, but they like him. So sometimes that does happen. It happened with Adolf Hitler. People liked Adolf Hitler when he came into power. He was very charismatic. He was a good speaker. People liked him. And they didn't know what he was going to turn around and do. And the massacres that would come, the Holocaust that would come. So it's the same thing today in our modern age. Because he's telling us here that Blair had a policy, and the majority of people in Great Britain were against Blair's policy of involving the nation in the war in Iraq. But why did he remain in power so long? Because they bought into him as a leader, and they were willing to live with their philosophical difference with him. But those types of things come back on us in the end. What if it was my child or your child that got kidnapped and taken in Israel, would we be so nonchalant about it? I don't think so. Or Boko Haram. What if it was your child that got taken? Then I don't think people would be so like, oh, well, that's happening over there. It's got nothing to do with us. So when people like the leader and the vision, then they get behind both. And you can spend some time writing a vision for your life, writing your values, seeing how they align with what you can do. Sometimes it's not always possible. We do face injustice in this world. And the examples given are still relevant today, of John F. Kennedy with the plan to go to the moon, with Martin Luther King, with Robert Kennedy. There are examples given here of their vision, their values, and how they lived, and how people followed them and loved them. Because at the time it was controversial. I mean, people had their white schools and they were proud of them. And then they had schools for the rest of us, the coloreds and the Indians, and people would call us niggers or coolies or kakiwalas. So we went through all that in Zimbabwe and Rhodesia, and then you think you come to Canada and it's going to be better, but it really isn't. It isn't much better. So, we can remember that we are kings and queens through Jesus, and that we are joined to him, and people can say and do whatever they like, and it does hurt, but at the same time we have to remember who we are. And one of the things that I had done when I did my training for my spiritual direction, I wrote out a vision for my life, and most of what I wanted to do I have done. I wanted to work with political leaders and religious organizations, non-profits, to bring about a more just world. I wanted to help women and girls to alleviate poverty. I wanted to educate myself, get better education. So I've done a lot of what I wanted to do. But some of the things I wanted to accomplish, I haven't accomplished, so I can keep working towards them. And having my own home, having my own property, being like the women in the Bible that took care of others in the church, that were able to make big contributions. There were women with Jesus that took care of him. So that piece is missing for me, but I'm not willing to compromise my values. And I was not raised to take the abuse and to take the injustice and just say, oh, well, that's how it is. I mean, what was the point then of people going to war and independence and all that? There's no point. If I want to go back and live in slavery, then yes, they've won. But why should I? Because I also deserve a property, I deserve a car, I deserve to travel. So I have to hold on to those things and my values and keep working towards them. So this is this next chapter on the law of buy-in, and you'll find that with supervisors as well, and with new people that come onto the team. If people don't buy into us and they don't see us as trustworthy and credible, they're not going to place people with us to learn from us. They'll put it with somebody else. But if they've seen that, okay, this person is credible, this person knows how to do things, they know how to get the job done, then when new people come on board, they'll ask you, can you train this person? Can they sit with you? Can they learn from you? And those are the things that we want to see happening. We want to be mentoring others. We want to be guiding others so that we can get to the next level. And whether it's in the same company or a different company, we take our skills with us, because we learn the skills and we take them. We're not robots. We're not going to forget about what we've done. They can't erase our memories. So those are the suggestions that John has for this. And it's always good to be honest, to be authentic, to develop trust, to set a good example, to help people to become more successful and achieve our personal goals. and to develop ourselves as leaders. For immigrants, it's a lot harder, and we have to persevere, we have to keep going, and we have to look for those opportunities to make a difference in our communities, here and wherever we came from. And a lot of what Rhodesia did was based on non-violence. They only turned to violence when there was no other alternative. And they used to have things like stayaways. They used to have days where people didn't go to work. So there was a lot of things that they did that people don't like to remember and talk about what the good was. But there was a lot of good that they did. And we had big, big guard dogs in our homes to look after us, to protect us. So there's a lot of history that people tell from their perspective and for what they want to remember. But there's even a lot of black people, whites, coloreds, Indians, that did not want the majority rule because they wanted a society that would be free and equal for everybody. That South Africa fought for that, but when Rhodesia fought for it, nobody supported it. They wanted black majority. So look at that. South Africa fought for exactly what Rhodesia fought for. But who did they support? And they only gave in to South Africa because they got the word out. Internationally, there was too much pressure. So they had to give in. There was no alternative. And there was nothing they could do. But there was a lot of death, there was a lot of loss that came in. And in our communities, in the African communities, it's not like India. We didn't discriminate and say, oh, the girls must stay at home and they must just get married and that's all that we want for them. We were always encouraged to study, to come up, to get careers, to go out and work. So it's a different culture that I grew up in. I didn't grow up in India. And even till today, the women that come from India, they say, oh yeah, there's no future for the women in India. The guys want to be on the top all the time. And they want to have the good incomes and you must just be there, the good housewife, to look after them. I'm like, really? In this day and age, you guys had Indira Gandhi and all that, and even in Pakistan, you had women leaders. They're like, yeah, that's on the outside. That's how it looks to people, but it's not the reality. So you can make up your own mind about India and what you want. Personally, I'm glad I grew up in Africa. And all these concepts, they always talk about Gandhi and Mahatma Gandhi and how he was so good and he preached non-violence. But we also had that in Africa. We also had non-violence until there was no alternative left. And Russia always had that first strike policy, just like they did with Ukraine. They're very violent and they only know how to use aggression to get things done. So, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen, but I hope that the African leaders will see the light and that they'll put things right and build societies that are equal for and fair for everyone, because we had that for a while after independence, before IMF and World Bank and all of them came into Zimbabwe and all the corruption and the land grab started. And even here in Canada, it's the people at the top are corrupt, but they're doing it, they're getting away with it. Meanwhile, people like me who are good and who are honest and hardworking are being put into poverty and unemployment. And they really are unfair to us and they're too hard on us, because if they had to be born in Africa and come here, they probably wouldn't accomplish half of what I've accomplished. They wouldn't be able to. Everything is different, even the way we write, the way we speak, everything is different, the manners. So that's this for the chapter for today. And I'm continuing my job search. I'm continuing to try to get speaking engagements, putting out my applications. So let's see what happens. We had problems in Montreal, but if you say something, they come and they turn it back on you. So it's better to let the news reporters pick it up and the leaders of the opposition and then support them. Don't go to the police and report it, because they'll just say you saying it. There's lots of cameras and things today, so that helps. But just like with Kennedy's time, tapes disappear, camera footage disappears, you know. So it was a coup when he died, and everybody knows it. There's even recordings of him saying it. And what do they care? They don't like godly men. They like corrupt men running the show.